Welcome to my channel for another do-it-yourself video, how to replace the alternator in a Honda Odyssey. And I have a 2010 Honda Odyssey. This is a 3.5 liter VTEC. The trim level is EX, so the engine is a little different for the higher trim levels, and I will mention what you need to watch out for the other trims. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the engine and I will check the voltage on it. Usually for a good alternator you will get something around 14 volts at the battery terminal, so that's the voltage that you are looking for. If it's bad, you will get much lower engine, and you will see the voltage is still going to be 12.4, which is not good. It needs to be 14 and above. The other thing you can do is also check that the Serpentine belt is working fine. There is no wobbling in there. I'm going to turn the engine off, and before I do that, I will mention one thing. If you have the EXL model or the one that is the limited, you might have a VCM engine, which is the variable cylinder, and you might have a leak here. And just watch if there is any leak of oil coming in. You might have a leak down in the floor also. The reason I mention the leak is sometimes your alternator will fail because you had engine oil dripping in your alternator, and this is a very well-known problem, and you may want to look at a repair for the spool valve. They call it the spool valve or the VVT solenoid. It's the same thing, and it has this area where you want to see if there is any leakage of oil, because if you put the alternator right sitting right underneath it, if you put a new alternator and you have your oil leaking into the alternator, that will ruin your new alternator within a month or so. What I would recommend is go with the OEM alternator that is already in your car. It's made by DENSO, and these are made by Nippon DENSO, and they are sold by multiple different retailers. I got this one from Summit Racing, and also I will put some links in my video. You can subscribe to my video and channel and see the other videos I have. But in Summit Racing, the other one you can buy from, I found very similar deals from rockauto.com as well as carid.com, and you will see the links down there. One thing I want to mention here is, if you are not buying a DENSO, you are taking chances on an aftermarket alternator, and that may last maybe a few years. If you're lucky, it may only last a few months. But I was very inclined to go with, say, a Bosch alternator. That was my alternative. It had a good pricing on it, but these are all remanufactured. But then I read the reviews and I found that DENSO is the way to go. The model number for this one is 2100750. It's from DENSO, and it's a remanufactured alternator. You can see that it's made in US. So before I remove any of the parts of the alternator, I'm going to take off the negative terminal of the battery, and I will put this on charge so that when you put a new alternator, you are not going to put the alternator into a charging the battery, and that might also fail the alternator. Now for the alternator, there are two connections. Just pop up the cover here, and that bolt, and also there is the other cover. So to remove this cable, you have to push down on the end of it, so this far end of it, and with one hand, with one finger, you can push it down and then you pull it out. The positive terminal takes a 12 millimeter socket, and I'm going to remove that. There is one more bolt right here which is holding these harnesses over here, so I'm going to remove that. It should be out of the way. To get the belt off, it is a tight squeeze, so I have a breaker bar, and it takes a 14 millimeter socket. You can see it takes some patience to get in there because this AC line, return AC line is there. So as I push it, it will release the tension, and I'm going to take the belt off the pulley. And then to remove the alternator, there are two bolts, one right underneath this thing and one in the bottom right there. So those two bolts, I will remove those. This one takes a 12 millimeter, and I'll use the ratchet. I have a flexible extension ratchet. The bottom bolt takes a 14 millimeter. So the top bolt was 12 millimeter, the bottom is 14. And I have a longer bar so that you can put some pressure to unbolt it. I'm going to take this bracket off so that it doesn't rub on your hand when you're trying to take the alternator out. And this one takes a 10 millimeter socket. And also I'm going to remove this one, so this is out of the way, and it doesn't, because this is the difficult part of this alternator, is to take it out of its groove there, and then you have to pass it through this area. To make it easier to bring this alternator out, I'm going to remove this bracket which has a 12 millimeter bolt underneath it. To remove this harness clip, I'm going to use a weed puller that I have, and you can see I put the weed puller right in there, and it should go in and pull it out. There, I got the harness out. And there it comes out. So the new one versus old one, you can see it has to be exact match, and doesn't have, here it is. It is Honda by DENSO. I will recommend that you use a DENSO one, and if you don't, let me know which one you put in, and put a comment and tell me if the other brands worked, so that other viewers can try that brand. So removing the washer fluid container might be the easiest to do, but it just went in, and I'm going to turn it around and fit it in. Now this can go back to the space. To put it back in, the issue is the lower bolt, the anchor bolt, needs to go in first, but you will see that the clearance is not much, so you have to push it in and make sure it goes in, and so you keep on wiggling it, and you can see it's moving in. And if you wiggle it sideways, I am able to get that in. I don't know if you can see it from here, right there. So almost there, and I'm going to take the long bolt and squeeze this in, and just make sure that So once you get the bottom one, the top one will be easier. I'm almost there, you can see. One of the difficult thing about putting this alternator back is to align this lower bolt. And this is the 14mm bolt, and you will be able to align the bolt through this groove here and then into the alternator, but it is not going to align very easily to the back side where it bolts onto the engine block, and that would be a problem. And in my case, it took me a few tries, and often you will lose patience. So take a break and then come back maybe after 5-10 minutes, get some water and try it again. The trick here is, don't assume that if the alternator is sitting on the bottom, it will align properly. It will not. This alternator needs to be pulled from the back. So while you are pushing it from the back, lift it up a little bit while you have this with the other hand and try to tighten it. So you will know if it goes in, because if you are able to move this alternator and the bolt gets loose, it has not locked in the back with the threads. I didn't tighten the lower bolt yet all the way because I need a little play to make this alternator go and lock in. So I put the bracket in here on the alternator. Now I have aligned all the bolts, the top 2 bolts and the bottom one, all of them are loose, and I have a torque wrench. The top bolt will take 16 foot-pounds, and the bottom will take 33 foot-pounds or close by. So I'm going to tighten each of them and go with that. It's a little tricky here, but it's almost close to being finished, so have a little patience and tighten them properly. So I've tightened the bolts here, and now I'm going to put the harness back and route it. So it should click. Put the cover back on, and this one is the positive terminal bolt. Make sure that the bolt doesn't fall off, and in my case it did fall off, and then I had to go searching for it in the engine compartment. Next, I'm going to check the serpentine belt. It's probably ready for replacement. I don't have a replacement yet, so I'm going to put this back on. So far no cracks as such. The way to put it is, I will put a diagram. You probably need a diagram to see how it goes. And I will start with the crankshaft, which is the lowest point, and then the AC condenser, which is the bottom one. I ended up looping the big pulley on the power steering first, and then left the tensioner one out. And as you push the tension on the pulley, you can use the other hand to put it in. So I connected the negative terminal back, and I'm going to give it a start and measure the voltage. So here it started up and looks good, no noise, and also the voltage is showing 14.2, and you can see 14.36. So that's a good voltage. I'm going to just give a test run and let it run for a little bit. Just make sure that the serpentine belt is all seated and it looks good. And this power steering fluid, though it leaked a little bit, I already had a little over the high mark, so I do not need to refill it. The rest of it looks good. So hope this helps, and if you have any questions, you can comment on this video and also subscribe to my channel. I have other videos on this car and other cars, as well as some home projects that I do, and I share with everyone the knowledge of doing it yourself. And also don't forget to like the video.